You know the reason why you're broke isn't because you don't make enough money. It's because you will never taught how to use the money that you've got. Welcome back to the Black and Raw podcast. I'm your host, Tino Kudatondarai Vunzalbaya. I ain't gonna repeat that. Here's a podcast that's creating the dialogue and the space for black men to be their most authentic selves. Now, my guest today, Dr. Paris Woods, who is a best-selling author of The Black Girl's Guide to Financial Freedom. It has sold over 120,000 copies worldwide, baby. Worldwide, baby. And we talk about a lot of interesting stuff in this podcast. You'll get to know how Dr. Paris Woods got into £70,000 of debt by the age of 30. And how she got out of it. Come on, it wouldn't be a success story if she didn't escape out of the debt, right? And you are also going to find out some simple ways that is going to help you to grow your money and also to be able to invest wisely. Dr. Paris talks about her own journey in how she's been able to come out of debt with very simple strategies. It's not going to be something that's really confusing for people to understand. We're not going to be talking the jargon of like an S&P 500 and do you match stock investments or do you try and beat the market? The idea is you never try and beat the market because the market will always win. But we talk about so many interesting things in this episode. And it's not just that, right? People say making money is easy. If making money was easy, everybody would do it, right? And getting out of debt is also easy too, right? Is it? What we sort of talk about in this is that getting out of debt is easy. It's actually the mindset and the things that are holding us back. That is actually what is the hardest part. Changing your mind is the hardest part of getting out of debt. She talks about simple ways that will help you get out of debt, that take away the temptation, that take away the, should I do it, should I not do it? So stay tuned for this episode, guys. If you are somebody... So, Paris, welcome to the Black and Raw podcast. It's really good to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
I should actually formally say Dr. Paris Woods.
Yeah. I wasn't doctor when I wrote the first book, but now I am.
Now you are. What is it that you've done your doctorate in?
In higher education leadership.
Okay, nice. Yeah. And how did you find undertaking that doctorship? Doctorship? That's not the word for it, but.
Yeah. No, it was so good. It was a sort of like a long way in the making. I always meant to do a doctorate. And so it felt like right time, right place. And I zoomed through it. I paid cash. So I was like, all right, we're on a timeline here. And so I was able to knock it out. And I wrote the book while in my program.
Wow.
So that whole productive procrastination thing really served me well. So.
How did you even manage writing a book and also doing a PhD at the same time? Like, that sounds quite intense.
That's the beauty of it. When you're like, I should be working on my dissertation. I think I'm going to write a book instead. Like my classmates really were like, Paris, what are you doing? But I was so motivated by doing something other than writing the dissertation. All my PhD people will understand. They're like, yeah, the dishes need to be done. So for me, I was like, I have another book to write, of course. So
oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. So you did that instead of your PhD, or instead of your dissertation. Sorry.
Yeah. Time I should have been working on that. I was writing this book, and then I still got it done because I was still paying cash. So it was a very productive period in my life, I have to say.
Oh, I do love that. And I guess in terms of touching on this book that you've written now, which is, The Black Girl's Guide to Financial Freedom. I'm sure a question which everybody asks you, but is always a good sort of table setter in terms of like, what made you want to sort of write this book?
Yeah, I had become really interested in personal finance for quite some time before writing the book. And it started with me wanting to get out of debt. And sort of realizing debt was really like a weight on my life. And once I started to feel like I had more control over my money, then I really got interested in investigating all of these exciting things I could do. And I came across the FIRE movement, financial independence, and was really motivated by that. And so I started just telling everyone I knew, because no one was talking about it in my community, like Black folks. And so I sort of became known as like the FIRE girl, and folks were like, oh, ask Paris about that thing. And so I had gotten laid off right in the middle of the pandemic. I got laid off. And because of the financial choices I had been making, it became more of a blessing. Like I wasn't worried at all. I was like, wow, what a gift. Now I can travel, I can do work on the PhD, work on the book, etc. And so then I knew it was time. I was like, all right, like a lot of folks getting laid off and suffering, I wish someone had given me this information much sooner. Why don't I capture all of this knowledge and experience into a book? And so that's what made it the right topic and also the time to get it out.
Yeah, COVID was a bit of a mad time, to be fair. And I imagine quite a lot of people, as you said, were getting laid off in COVID, and even for you, but that you were in a good financial position to sort of weather that. I guess, sort of, as you mentioned before, that you were in debt and you were trying to sort of get out of that. Maybe what did that look like for you? How did that feel, sort of being like, I need to get out of this, and then being able to actually get out of it and start implementing the things which I'm sure you talk about in your book?
Yeah. So I would say prior to this wake up call moment, I had just been sort of going along, doing the things I thought were the right things to do, right? Went to college, luckily for free, because I went to Harvard and I was low income. So if those two things are true, it's free. But then after that, buying a brand new car in loans and swiping credit cards and sort of like doing all the normal adulting things. And, so I turned 30 and I was like, I'm doing my dream work, working with young people on college access and helping them design great lives. I'm living in New Orleans, right? So I was like in my favorite city. So like all these things were perfect. And yet I was like, I feel like pretty broke. And like something isn't aligning here. And I came across good old Dave Ramsey. And I was like walking through a bookstore and picked up his book and read The Total Money Makeover. And I was like, oh, this is the problem. I'm in debt and I don't have to be. And that was like my light bulb moment around like how I had been thinking about and approaching debt versus a different set of choices that I could make. And so once I had that wake up call, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Let me go back and look at all the little mistakes that I didn't realize were mistakes. How much debt do I have on my car note? How much do I have in credit cards? Just like do a total take stock of where I was financially. And then once I realized I was in so much debt, I think at the time it was like $70,000. And I was working in education making $65,000. And so to me, that 70 was like, how will I ever get out? Like I got super, super motivated. I was like, all right, I'm going to knock this out. Now that I have the information, I have to take some different actions. And so I was really motivated to become debt free.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, as you said, you had that light bulb moment, sort of reading a book, and I feel like that can be the thing for a lot of people. And I'm guessing that you would also want that to be the thing for people when they read your book, to be like, oh, this is sort of my light bulb moment. And as I was sort of reading a bit about you, you've already sold. I can't speak today. You've already sold 120,000 copies. So like, what's been the most like common financial struggle you've heard sort of from your readers, or even people that you interact with on a daily basis?
Yeah, the debt one is still a big one. I think we still sort of live in a society where debt is normalized. And then folks are sort of thinking about like the choices they want to be able to make with their money and how they don't have enough in the bank. They don't have enough coming out of their paychecks. And so there's this sort of like disconnect between the choices we're making to take on debt and then the money we wish we had to invest or save or travel or whatever else. And so it's sort of connecting the two. And that was the light bulb moment that I had about like, well, wait, actually the debt is the problem. And if I didn't have to pay all these car notes, didn't have to pay all these debt bills, I could actually be using that money to do something else. And so I think sort of this light bulb moment around debt being good or bad is a big one for folks. And then, so I just sort of walked folks, the whole first half of the book is about debt and how we get into it, how to get out of it, just like in such an accessible way. And folks were, saying, I kind of knew this, but it was never this clear to me. Like why and I'd focus on three things: car loans, credit cards, and student loans. Like those are the biggies that are catching us up. So I think folks are just really appreciating like how clear it is to see how the system is set up to entrap us into those forms of debt. And then that knowledge helps folks feel more empowered to get back out and to tell all the young people around them how to avoid those same traps. So I think that's a big one. I think the other sort of big lesson folks have is around investing. Because the other thing our society does is all this hoopla around all these fancy, sexy things to invest and all these risky, sort of like gambling adjacent ways to
Mm.
invest. And so folks are rightfully terrified when they think about investing all of this hard earned money and losing it. And what was missing and what is missing, I think, even in the financial literacy space, is so this basic foundation about how simple boring investing works and how that actually leads to long-term wealth. So I think the book cuts through a lot of that noise in the investing space from folks who are trying to sell stuff, sell their services, whatever. So just like tell the truth and to make it simple and accessible. And folks are like, okay, I'm ready. I'm finally like feeling able to open this investing account after reading your books. I think those are the two biggies
Those
that folks are finding. Yeah.
so as I hear you in terms of like breaking down the debt, what debt looks like, what sort of debt you have, whether that's student, credit cards, car loans, and I think it just becomes so easy to go through those because people think, oh, it's free money, right? And then when you actually then start being like, oh, I have to pay this back and I have to pay that back, and then it just blows over into a thing where you feel a bit drowned by it. I remember I remember interviewing someone about money, and they said that Klarna is huge. Like people are using Klarna to get their groceries, and obviously people are using it to buy clothes and stuff like that. But also something that he told me, which I had no idea, was that like mortgage advisors. People that look at mortgages when you're going for one view Klarna as like I forgot what the word was, but sort of those everyday credit loans that are really, really bad for you and
Mm.
sort of rank you down because of it. And I was like, oh, I actually never knew. I actually never knew that. I mean, I don't use Klarna, but I know many people that do who would have never heard of that piece of information before.
Yeah, it's like and this is what I mean about society making it so easy to get into debt. It's sort of like the latest iteration. It used to be like you had to lay away something if you couldn't afford to pay for it in cash, and it had to sit in the store, and you go make your little payment, right? Until you paid it off, and then you can take the thing home. And so then we got credit cards. And so now I can swipe and I get my thing, and then now I'm paying the credit card company. And so this is the latest digital way to be able to get the thing you want. And the problem is mentally, we don't have to acknowledge that we don't have the money. Like the reason you're
Mm,
not paying cash right now is because you don't have the money for this thing. And so this makes it easy to access it. And then on the back end, this sort of accumulating debt is happening, and it's designed that way, right? And so folks are sort of the biggest thing, the biggest worry I have is for folks to have this like crippling guilt once we
mm,
realize like, oh my gosh, like I've accumulated all of this debt. And so it's important to know, no, the whole system was set up around you to make it easy to accumulate debt. So I don't want folks to feel guilty once they have this realization. I want folks to feel empowered to now make a new choice the next time you walk up to the counter and they offer you the credit card, or the next time you're online shopping and you get offered the buy now, pay later. You can
mm.
make a new choice this afternoon, right? And so that's sort of like the exciting, empowering piece of this.
And I guess, as you said before, like sort of making those small steps, like realizing where you are, how to sort of change maybe those habits and routines. Because I think it also comes down to that, isn't it? It's so easy to just do that. Oh, pay now, pay later, or to buy it and then be like, oh, it doesn't fit, so I'm going to return it back. But some people then don't return it back, and then you've got a piece of clothing that you're not going to wear, and you're more in debt because of it. Um, I feel like a lot of like financial advice is maybe written for people that sort of like already have that stability. Like, what would you say for maybe a young person that looks at your book and is like, oh, I'm just trying to survive right now. Like that advice isn't going to help me. What would you sort of say to that young person?
Yeah, I think, first of all, so I agree with you. A lot of the financial advice is written for folks who either already have a lot of money and they're just trying to figure out what's the right thing to do with my money. I have $10,000. How do I invest it? or it's sort of like overly jargonized. Like it's
Mm.
so technical, it's so high level that you feel more intimidated after reading it. Like maybe you need to go hire somebody to manage your money and not like you could do it yourself. So my book is, and what I'm up to, my whole platform and the purpose of my life is the opposite of that. I want folks to actually understand a lot of this is much simpler than folks have led us to believe. And I get it, and I'm not knocking anybody for doing whatever they need to do to sell their stuff. But in reality, money is simple, right?
Mm.
And so, what the book is up to, and I think the reason why people love it and the reason why they're even gifting it to young people is because it simplifies all the jargon, all the messiness, and says, here are actually the one, two, three things you need to do well with money to actually build wealth. It's not even just how to stay middle class. And, that's my other bone to pick with financial advice. It's often it's boring and it's just helping us be regular people. And, I'm like, no, you can actually build wealth in a simple way. You
Yeah,
can actually
that,
create your dream life in a simple way. And so I'm less interested in you becoming some sort of expert and more interested in you feeling equipped to make a different choice and to do those few things that are going to have the biggest impact on your money and on your life.
yeah, and I think those are the things that like people want. Like I know that I want definitely. You want to be able to have the money to go on multiple holidays a year, or to not sort of worry about providing for your family and things like that. Like I work in social services, um, and you see that there are a lot of things that could be solved with money. Money's not like the be all and end all, but there is a lot of things that it provides you, and sort of just having that financial stability, in not being able to sort of worry about what's going on. And I think I can't remember where I saw it or how fact checky it is. I might have to fact check it myself afterwards. But that I think a lot of marriages end in divorce because of money. Like money is such a
Mhm.
huge topic. Um, it's such a huge thing in our lives. So I think it's really amazing that, your book is aiming to target the young people, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the next leaders and generations of the world. And being able to help them with that financial freedom, I think is really good.
Yeah. And especially because so many of the mistakes we make them early and then
Mm.
they're following us. So the sooner you could get ahead, the sooner you can avoid costly mistakes and the sooner you can take advantage of compound interest, right? It's like the time is on your side. It's like the biggest advantage young people have for making really, really simple little tweaks when you're young that can amass tons of wealth as you get older.
Yeah, definitely. I do remember seeing a Barclays ad, which is actually a really good ad, because it gets you to think about this. But it's saying it has little children going to the bank and stuff like that, and like making money moves. And it says, oh, your money habits are built from when you're like 7 years old. So it's sort of like harpening back to the point of like these things are ingrained in you, and as you said, we're in a society that encourages you to spend more than you have. I think social media also doesn't help with that, because you see someone and you're like, oh my gosh, like look what they can afford. Can I afford that? And that you can't, but like you want to keep up with the trend. And so yeah, as you're saying, building those skills in early is just really going to help any young person out.
Yeah, that's right. And the three steps, I feel like I don't want folks to feel like I'm hiding something from them. It's just you make money, you spend less than you earn, and you invest the difference. That's like literally the whole equation. And then once you sort of realize that in your brain, so we're talking about debt, right? And debt is
Mm,
about spending more than you bring in. So if you just switch that equation and say, here's what I bring in, here's how much I'm going to spend, and this distance between the two, I'm going to invest it. That's your strategy. And then you can say, okay, I want to accelerate this. Well, I got to make more money. I got to bring more in. Or I want to get out of debt. I can't make more money right now. I got to spend less, right? So there's some little tweaks you can make. But once you understand that the whole system to building wealth is bringing in money, spending less than you earn, and investing the rest, then it sort of helps you start to see the traps. Like, oh, someone's trying to pay me less than I'm worth. They're trying to mess with this equation.
yeah.
Someone is I'm trying to make me buy stuff I don't need or I can't afford. They're messing with this equation. Or someone's making this seem crazy, this investing piece, Actually, no, it's just very simple. I'm just going to put the money in an index fund. I'm not going to try to buy individual stocks. I'm not going to
Yeah.
try to do future, all the craziness. I can actually do some very simple things in each of those three categories. I call it make, manage, multiply, in the making, the managing, and the multiplying of the money. And I will build wealth. That's actually the entire system, and anyone can do it. That's the one thing I want folks to take away.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point that anyone can do it. I guess in terms of like the mindset and maybe sort of identity of somebody, because I feel like a lot of people, the emotions sort of sometimes get in the way. Their own self-beliefs to be like, oh, maybe I don't deserve this financial freedom, or maybe, oh, I'm just always going to be in debt. Like, how much do you feel like financial freedom is more sort of like a mindset versus like the practical skills that someone has?
Yeah, it might be 80/20
Mm,
mindset. Because you think about how simple it is. So, why wouldn't most of us do it? Especially once you can now see the traps that are set up. The thing that gets in the way are our emotions, our beliefs, our feelings about our value and our worth. It's why we don't talk about money because we have so many feelings about what all that means and what the choices
yeah,
I've made mean. It's why we don't ask for more money. It's why we spend more than we think we should, either because I was raised in a family where we got that check on the first. This happened to me. We got that check on the first. We spent all the money on the first. So as soon as you get it, you got to get rid of it, right? And
yeah,
so we start to pick up these habits, and all of that is within us. So part of the process of sort of making this shift around making different actions is starting to notice, like, okay, what is coming up for you when you're about to check out, and you don't have the money in your bank account, and you're going to reach for the credit card, right? There's a choice that you're making. How do we pause and start to notice, like, what am I experiencing? What am I thinking about myself? What am I thinking about this choice? That's the actual work. The money part is the easy part. The actual
mm.
work is what's happening inside of us while we're making these decisions.
How long did it take you maybe to sort of shift that thinking inside of you? As you mentioned that that was sort of your upbringing that you saw with your parents. How did you yourself sort of start to shift that? Was it as simple as like
Oh man.
changing choices or
So the wake up call was important. And that I had that experience of guilt of like, oh no, I messed up. I did all this stuff. As smart as I think I am, I messed all this stuff up. Right. So you have to like come back from that after I have my pity party. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make action.
yeah,
Right. And then that's when I start to realize like it actually is really hard to like spend within your means. Right. And so for me, the trick was to start to automate some things. I'm like, okay, society is trying to automate me getting into debt. I'm going to automate me getting out of debt.
yeah,
And so I had to set up an architecture around myself to make it easy to make the choices that I want to make. So for me, that meant not even having the credit card in my wallet when I'm at the checkout. So I can't be like, I can't make that choice. Now all of a
yeah,
sudden I'm taking it out. Or setting up different accounts. And so I even still I have a account where all my bill money goes. I have an account for my everyday spending money, and then your savings and investing. And my paycheck automatically puts the money in there. So that just takes out this choice of me saying, okay, how much do I want to save this month? Nope. It's
no, it's
already
gone.
taken. And the
Yeah,
savings account is in a whole other bank. I don't even see that money. I don't know how, right? It's like, how do we sort of set up the automations to make it easy for us to make the choices that we want to make? Because the mental and the emotional and all of that is so powerful and it's hard to change. So if you need to do that, I'm like, do what you need to do. Set up
yeah.
whatever systems, fix your wallet, fix what's happening online, fix the bank account, do whatever you need to do to make it easy on yourself to make the choices you want to make.
Yeah, I never even thought about just not having the credit card anywhere near you or not having it on your Apple Pay because then when you're like, oh, I don't have that money in my actual account, but I have it on my credit card, so I could just use that. It's like it's that trap, isn't it, of being like, oh, it's there, so I'll use it. But if it's not there, it just takes away that choice. It takes away that temptation for you. So that's one I'm definitely going to take away with myself as well. I guess in terms of maybe the role, like what you feel like the role of like community and family is, in sort of in a young black women, black men's approach to money, because I think there are probably, I mean, every community sort of has their differences, but we're both black, so we're speaking about black people. Like, what do you feel like that role is for community and family?
Yeah. So one of the things and a lot of the stories that I tell in the book are around the interactions I had with my mom while I was making these financial decisions, and extending a lot of grace to her because she was operating based on what she knew. And so
Mm,
you're thinking, debt is great. Like my child, she went with me to the dealership to buy that brand new car after I finished college. And she was proud of me that I didn't need a cosigner. Like that was like, wow, my daughter's doing so well, right? So she thought she was guiding me in the best way that she could. And so I think part of the responsibility or the opportunity for family members, for the adults in young people's lives, is to educate ourselves so that the knowledge we're passing along and the guidance we're providing will help the young people get where we wish we were, right?
mm,
So it's a way to sort of pay forward that knowledge. And then the other thing, and this is a question I get asked a lot by parents who are like, I need to put money into a 529 for my kid, or I need to, they're sort of like completely forgetting about themselves and
yeah.
putting everything onto the child. And so I say, the first gift you can give your child is to not become a dependent older adult. Right. So,
Mm,
so many young people, or even folks our age, sort of once we get into this space where we need to actually be investing and saving, a lot of that money is getting pulled away into having to support older family members, having to support our aging parents, having to support extended family, right? So the family becomes a financial burden instead of a blessing. And so I think that's the other piece I would encourage, like putting your own mask on first, like we've all heard that in the airplane.
yeah.
That means actually, first of all, not becoming a financial burden to your own kids. And then, of course, the big goal is like, how could you, if you really get this muscle moving, you could become a real financial blessing and you could be the person gifting money, right? So that's the gold standard. But for most of us, if you're not there yet, that's okay. Just at least try to get yourself to a place where you can support yourself and not become a financial burden to the generation coming after you.
Yeah, which I think is brilliant in terms of like as you said, putting on your own oxygen mask. We hear it all the time, right? If you travel or even if you're somewhere else and you're like, I think in work they say, your cup needs to be filled before you can fill into other people's cup. You hear it all the time, but how often do people actually implement it for themselves is a much different question.
Yeah. And it's so powerful. It's like the generational folks want to build generational wealth. And I love that. I'm like, great. And so you can pass along all kinds of wealth. It's not just financial. That's the gold standard for folks who want their gold star. You can do that.
Mm,
But you can pass along wisdom and knowledge as well. You can pass along encouragement, encouraging that young person to follow their dreams, right? And encouraging that person by handing them a book of, I wish I knew this when I was your age, right? So there's so many sort of generational impacts that we can have if we sort of think about it a little more broadly.
yeah, definitely. And I guess in terms of if we focus on young people for a bit, like how should young people have these conversations in their relationships and with their friends? Obviously, a relationship's a bit different to a friend, but like I guess for both, like how can young people start to have those conversations?
Yeah, I think one of the big things we can do is actually to have a conversation.
Mm,
Because what I've noticed is that folks start to get really cagey when they talk about their money.
yeah.
And for me personally, like a lot of the big breakthroughs I've had, think about like our career and knowing how much to ask for, it's because someone else was like, open enough to tell me like here's how much you should be asking for this job, or here's how much I'm making, or just like starting to have these here's what I'm doing in my retirement account, what's going on with yours. When I was releasing the book, I actually taught a class just at a nonprofit that was working with high school and college age students to expose them to the material. And what I did in the class was I brought in an adult each week. An adult came in and I was like, all right, tell the kids how much money you make. All
Oh,
right, tell
okay.
the kids what are you doing with your investments, right? And these are my friends, and I was like, this is for the
Yeah.
kids, right? But it's like, oh, for you parents and for the children, and you're not recording this, right? Because it's like this is so taboo. But for
Mm,
the kids, they gain so much. They're like, we never hear adults talking about their money. Like we never. This is like changed our lives. And so there's something about just actually talking about money and telling the truth about what's going on and sort of starting to reduce the shame, at least get you a little circle together, like at least a
yeah.
bestie or two who you can like talk about real things with. I think that's really powerful. Talk about what you're reading, talk about what you're learning, talk about the mistake you made, and or talk about the deal you found. I really wanted to buy this, but I found it cheaper over here. Just like let's start to normalize talking about money in a real way, because I think that is so powerful.
Yeah, and I guess once you start to have those conversations, it then becomes easier to then um to further have those conversations, but also to like lean on those friends to be like, oh, like I'm really struggling this month. I've maybe done a bad investment, or I've bought something that I shouldn't have. And being able to come to a friend where there's none of that sort of shame and that those feelings that get in the way, as we sort of talked about before, isn't it? Because those can be some of the biggest things that then prevent you from having those conversations. Um,
Yeah, it's I have to say when I was getting out of debt, I also had a friend with me. We both read our Dave Ramsey book and we're like, we're going to get out of debt together. And we're
mm,
going to have a check-in every week and we're going to talk about the choices that we're making. Right? And so it's like that your friend can also support you in the choices you're making for yourself. So if your friends know, hey, I have a goal to save money, and they're like, let's go out and let's spend money on X, Y, or Z, they could also say, oh, but here's some options, or we can do something that costs less money. Like we're going to
mm.
support you with your goal when it comes to finances. And so often we're overspending because we're trying to fit in. And so what happens if we actually told the truth about what we're doing with our money so that we can fit in by getting support from our friends as opposed to trying to hide what we're trying to do with our finances, right? So it's like, how do we flip the script on the influence that our peers are having on us from overspending to saving, or from overspending to getting out of debt, or to making more money, right? Like let's use our networks to help us accomplish the goals that we have instead of trying to keep it a secret from them.
Yeah, and how did having sort of an accountability partner, like, how did that change in terms of helping you reduce that debt?
Yeah. First of all, it's good to just have somebody else to talk to, because these things are hard, and all we talked about the mental and emotional things that are happening within you. It helps to let it out and to be able to talk to somebody about it who's on the same page with you. But then when you're on a journey like getting out of debt, it's also helpful to have someone on that same journey with you. So y'all can together do things that cost less money, or y'all can together find the deals and things like that. So I think it was really helpful for me psychologically and then practically to have someone who's on the same spending plan as me so that we could support each other in hitting those goals.
Yeah, definitely. I know that this year, sort of, as obviously we're recording in 2025, 2026 in a few days' time. Something I feel like that hindrance me from my goals last year was not having accountability partners. So I've made sure to sort of correct that this year. But I am just looking forward to sort of having someone to be like, have you done this? Have you done that? Yeah, I have. Like, can we talk about this? And sort of really sort of spurring me on. So by the sounds of it, that really helped you in terms of gaining that financial freedom, but reducing that debt, and just being able to talk to someone, as you're saying, about sort of what's going on and having someone like in your corner.
Yeah, I love that. Accountability partners. That's how we need to be using our friends. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. I guess in terms of for some of the young people that you work with, what are maybe some of their worries that you feel like when it comes to money? Like what are the things that they sort of saying to you that they're afraid of?
Yeah. I mean, the student loans. So, depending on what age you are, if you're young enough to now have gotten your student loans and like, whoops, and how am I ever going to make enough money to pay it off?
Yeah.
Then it's helpful to talk to somebody who's done it and to say, okay, how do we set up some automations so that you're paying that off every single month and it's not weighing on you psychologically? I think for younger people, here's what I find to be very interesting: the messages that we get from society. So young folks are concerned about building credit. That's everyone raises their hand and say, but how can I build credit? Like, I really want to get into debt. I want to get into
Mm,
the debt system. Tell me about it. How do I access it? Or folks get really interested in all these crazy investing schemes, right? And so, everything's now popping up. You can do an app on your phone and it's gambling. Like, I'm going to
yeah.
trade on what I think is going to happen tomorrow, right? And so it's helpful for young people to start to recognize the traps that are around you, and not just sort of go with the flow and say, oh, everyone's talking about this, I guess I need to figure out how to do it. So if I were a young person today, I think that would be the first thing I would want to know is, what are the traps that are around me that I may be sort of like, that may be invisible to me, or sort of I'm not realizing it? What are the messages folks are giving me? And also, like, start to be careful about who you take advice from.
Mm.
This was something I learned early on. Even just thinking about going to college, I wanted to go to Harvard. That was my dream. And people were giving me advice who hadn't been to Harvard and they don't know how to go there, but they have a lot to say about
Yeah.
whether or not they think I can get in, right? So it's
Everyone
like,
always does.
think about where you want to go, what your goal is in life, and then find somebody who's done it. Find somebody who's actually been there and take advice from them, right? And maybe when we were growing up, I don't know your age, but I'm 41, right? So when I was growing up, I couldn't just go Google someone and watch their YouTube video and learn from them, right? But now folks can. So this
Yeah.
advice I'm giving about like find someone who's been where you want to go and get advice from them is so much more accessible to young people. And that would be my advice. Like be careful about who you're taking advice from. And make sure that you're like following someone who's already traveled the road that you want to go.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is maybe now in this generation, there is a lot of, I mean, one, there's a lot of AI, but there's a lot of people that are saying they're doing lots of things. And like, I remember my sister was trying to find a course and she saw someone messaging her and like really just wise advice from my parents. They're like, go on Company's House, see how much they're earning, like look at actually what the figures are behind their business. And then make your decision because you don't want to be getting money off somebody whom, isn't actually going to provide you with that good advice. And so, as you're saying, being able to recognize where someone is, if they've been there before you, that might be a good person to do. I guess what would maybe be your advice for how they start to recognize that? How do you recognize who is a fake and who is actually the success they say they are?
Yeah, that's like the other, it's like the blessing and the curse. Now that folks are much more accessible, you also have folks popping up. Here's one way that I personally can tell, and it's sort of like an internal feeling. The feeling you get when you're like, oh, I'm about to win the lottery, like this, like very frenetic energy, like, wow, this is too good to be true, right? That's what that feeling is actually telling you. And I can feel it. And so it's somebody who's like has all this hype and you're like, oh my gosh, this is quick money. That's all I got to do is do. And I could be a millionaire tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
Start to notice that. Right. Versus someone who, and that's why when I talk about investing, I try to throw in the word boring. I'm like, I want you to start to notice something about the way money actually works, which is not flashy and it's not exciting. And you don't become a millionaire overnight. It's actually just very consistent, small actions over time that lead to wealth. Right. And so there are books about this, and I just want you to start to internalize the feeling that wealth is built. It feels like peace. Right? It feels like stability. Like that's the experience that you get when you're getting advice that actually works, versus that frenetic energy. And I need to do this tomorrow. And And when you start to feel that way, your little spidey senses should come up.
Yeah. That feeling of like, nah, this is too good to be true. I think that's what my sister was having the other day. And I was glad my parents were there to give her the advice. And I think that's some good advice for young people that, if it does feel too good to be true, maybe start to ask more questions. Like also those people that are fakes, if you just keep prodding them with questions, like they'll be like, this is too hard. Like I haven't done this to like prove myself to you. But like, if they are doing that and you find that actually, no, this is even getting sketchier by the minute, then there's your answer, isn't it? You should pull away at that point.
And we all make mistakes, right? So here's the other benefit of being able to talk to your friends. Because if you mess up or you figure out something that didn't actually work, you have to tell somebody. Like, oh, those folks said if all I did was X, Y, and Z, I'll be rich. I tried it. I lost the money. I made a mistake. I invested in crypto. I lost 20 grand, whatever. These are the stories that I hear. Tell somebody, right? And so it's the shame also that prevents other folks from like learning from our mistakes. We have to tell it to somebody.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when everyone was getting into crypto, and I don't know why, but I was just like, I don't really fancy trying that. Like, I was like, I'm okay because I don't know it too well. And I think I was reading quite a lot of finance books at that point, and I was like, let me just do like stocks and shares, like you say, in the index fund. Let me not try and sort of cheat the system. Like that will build over time, like crypto, and then cryptos obviously went up and down and all of that. And I was a bit glad I didn't get into the hype of it really, because I was like, I don't know how this thing is going to last, and it just seems too It literally did feel like gambling. It was like you're gambling quite a lot of money away, and people lost money. People had the highs and they had the really lows. But that's opposite to what the message is saying in terms of like it's boring, it's that stability, it's that consistent over time rather than the big highs, and then you obviously get the big lows.
That's right. Yeah.
What sort of popular financial advice do you actually disagree with, or that you think is sort of overrated?
This is a good one. So early days, when I was growing up, I didn't have my book. So I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I
Hmm.
was
A
reading,
popular one.
Susie Orman, right? And so there is a lot of advice around using debt to build wealth. Right. And it makes a lot of sense. Wow, I'm going to use OPM, other people's money. And I think that's probably one of the things when I was reading Dave Ramsey, because, his background, he did the real estate thing and got amassed, millions of dollars in real estate and then went bankrupt. And so
Mm.
after that, he was like, I will never use debt. He doesn't use debt to buy houses. Like he was like, no, I'm a recovering debt addict and I will never use debt again. And I think that was what he learned from his mistake. And so I have a mortgage on my house, right? So I'm not saying no debt ever for any reason,
Mm.
but I think the advice that really bugs me and that I want folks to be more cautious about is folks who are peddling using debt. It's that same sort of line of if only you use debt, you could become a millionaire overnight by buying all these houses. There's so much more complexity to investing through anything specialized. And I want folks to understand that investing in real estate, and sort of we talk about the 4 doors to wealth, right? So you can do real estate, you can do a business, you can do stocks, and you can do intellectual property.
Mm.
The reason why my book I'm here. The reason why my book focuses on like the index funds is because that's actually the easy one. Everything else requires expertise. Like you need
Yeah.
to study. You can invest in real estate, but it's like building a career in real estate. You need to study, you need mentors, you need to understand how the numbers work, et cetera. You can start a business. I have all of these, right? So I'm telling you from experience that it requires knowledge and expertise to do well in all of these areas.
Yeah.
And anyone who's telling you it's easy, anything besides investing in index funds, that's the easy one. And I learned that from J.L. Collins. So that's my favorite. If folks want to learn more about this index fund strategy and what the actual simple path to wealth is, I would pick up his book. It's called The Simple Path to Wealth. J.L. Collins, he wrote it for his daughter. He was like, you don't have to become an expert in finance. I'm going to tell you the simple way to be wealthy when you grow up.
Oh, that's sweet.
And right, I'm like, this book, we all need to read this. We don't need to be Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'd rather you read The Simple Path to Wealth. But I think that's what I want folks to take away is that there are many things you can do with your money to either make more money or to invest it, but it requires expertise and it's not easy. It actually requires something. So I would encourage folks to do it if you're interested in it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my advice is like, let's start with what you're actually interested in, and then you can go hard and deep on that as opposed to trying to follow someone else's plan. Because any of it's going to be hard. Let's do the thing you actually care about, and then you can go into it and you can learn all about the real estate and you can learn all about the business, whatever it is. Be interested in it first and know it's going to be hard and that you're going to get some personal satisfaction outside of just trying to make a quick buck from doing that thing.
Yeah, and I think anything in life that's worth it, it takes time, doesn't it? And you got to put in that effort and that discipline into it. I guess in terms of like you've written this book towards Black women, do you feel like there's something different that Black women should be hearing? Or do you feel like actually finance books have never really been targeted to Black women, so that's why I'm writing it towards them?
Yeah, I think so. When I discovered financial independence, obviously, like J.L. Collins is a white guy, or Pete Adeney, whose blog Mr. Money Mustache, that was the blog where I first read about FIRE, white guy. And then I go to the conference, and it's like mostly white males, and so that's fine. But I was like, how come? Like, I want people like me to be talking about this. And so I go to conferences with women who are running nonprofits like me or who are earning multiple 6-figure incomes like me. And I'm like, hey guys, can we talk about financial independence? And I was hearing crickets, like folks had never heard about it. And so that's why I wrote this book. I thought I want to infiltrate my own community with a really important topic. And I want us to start having this conversation because it wasn't being had. So the advice in the book is like, standard financial advice anyone can follow, but I wanted my community to have access and to hear from someone who looks like them so that we can start having these conversations too.
Yeah, and I think when you hear someone that looks like you, that talks like you, that walks like you, it makes it easier to then relate, isn't it? To be like, oh, if she can do it, then I can do it, isn't it? It's like seeing those role models and seeing those people in power have those conversations. Because you're right, if it's just like, yeah, some of those white men that you named, or I can't remember what the dude that does what is it, BlackRock? He, like, I forgot what his name is now. I'm blanking on his name. Um, but there are so many there in the industry that are white males, and I think it's really good that you're sort of tailoring it towards black women and just being there, being present, being upfront, showing you guys can do this. Like, you can look like me and you can do it. So I think that's really a powerful place to be.
Yeah. And that is the most common question I get asked. Can I give this book to boys? Can I give this book to anyone who's not Black? Which is why I'm like finally releasing the student adaptation in 2026. So the Student's Guide to Financial Freedom will be out on March 3rd. And so that'll be the one to sort of at least reach the community that I have dedicated my career to helping, which is high school and college age young people, with the same really like powerful, simple to implement advice on how to build wealth and also how to live a life that you love. I think that's at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to use money to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. I guess for you, what does that look like in your life, sort of living a life that you love? Like what does sort of living with purpose mean? So, and I guess how does money sort of fit into all of that? A bit of a loaded question, but
Yeah, I mean, it's like an ever evolving process. I think some years ago, I had done a program where I had to create this 20-year vision of like, okay, it was like a philanthropy program. So I was thinking at the end of my investments in other people and investments in other folks' nonprofits, what do I want the world to look like? And so I was sort of envisioning like what the ideal day, and this is the exact process I walk folks through. Chapter 5, read chapter 5 on dream, or do this right now, what I'm saying, which is like, I imagine your ideal life, like what the ideal day would look like in your ideal life. Like, what are you doing from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep? And so I had detailed all this out. I was like, I have my cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe my husband brews it for me, right? I was single at the time.
mm,
And then I get to go to a board meeting. I get to share my expertise. And in that 20-year vision, I had written that I was an author who had written a book that had significantly impacted my community, right? That's where the book actually first showed up. And so I think, part of it was like, once you get clear on the vision, then you get to start taking actions toward the things you want to be true. Or when the opportunity pops up, you're like, yes, that was the thing in the vision. I'm going to say yes to that thing because that's the thing that I really wanted. And so for me, that has looked like being an author, which I now am.
congrats,
And in
congrats.
fact, in 2026, which we're just a few days away, I'm moving into being a full-time author. Like I'm like
Okay.
living the dream. I'm no longer working a W-2 job. So really sort of taking the leap into the dream life that I've been able to create for myself as a result. And I am married, so I did get the husband part of it. I think I had written in that vision that I want to go see Blue Ivy on Broadway. I was like, maybe by the time when I'm 50, she'll be on Broadway.
Yeah.
But I go to Beyonce concerts and I get very good seats. So that's part of my dream life. I drive a nice car. I live in a house that I've designed to be beautiful. So like the things that I value, which are being surrounded by beauty and love and having an impact on other people, are the things that I've made true in my life. So
No, and that's really good to hear. And good that you've already started achieving some of those things. And I wish you all the luck sort of with it and all the hard work you've already put into it. And I'm sure you're going to be putting in more. I guess in terms of like one thing which I wanted to also just address and touch on is that I know a lot of young people these days aren't reading, and probably reading less and less. I guess for you, how do you feel like you can make this information accessible for maybe those young people that don't read? And don't get me wrong, I think everyone should be reading. But
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
happening, isn't it? Attention spans are reducing.
I mean, you haven't lied. When I first wrote the book, I was like, I want to write for young people because I was one of those kids who was reading finance books in high school and I didn't have this book. And so it has to be a book you sort of like if you feel called to do something to solve a problem you experience, like do that. And so that's what I'm doing with this book. But it is a good question about how we extend beyond. I'm like addicted to social media, like most people. And so that's the other place that I'm spending my full-time author time on is social media. So if folks want to follow me, author Paris Woods is my handle on Instagram and on TikTok and YouTube and all the places. And starting next year, I'm going to be putting a lot more educational content in ways that are hopefully entertaining and just as easy to implement as the book so that folks can gain access to this information through multiple modes as well.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the sweet spot, isn't it? Having it in multiple versions, because I do think there will always be a place in society for books. And even young people that get a bit older and they're like, actually, maybe I should read this book. And then they pass that book on to their kids and get them reading. And like, I think books will just be something that is timeless, really. But as you know, as we're saying, that having those multiple avenues is going to allow people to get the information however they're digesting it.
Yeah. And for our readers, pass the information you learn from reading a book on. So you can now become that informed peer. Like, oh, I read this thing. Let me give you the tips. Let me give you the highlights. So there are so many ways to get information. It could be from a peer who watched the video or who read the book. Yeah,
definitely. I guess, Paris, before we finish, just I got two more questions for you. What does, say, like a young Black woman sort of reading your book, what would you maybe want their next 10 years to look like once they've read that?
I want them to be free. Freedom is my highest core value. And financial freedom to me means having complete control over your labor and your time. So in the Black Girl's Guide, I talk about us being our ancestors' wildest dreams. And for me, especially for Black folks and for Black women, like the labor of our mothers and grandmothers and our ancestors, they did all of that so that we could enjoy freedom to decide how we spend our time, where we work, all of that. And so that's the vision that I have. And so the pathway that we talk about in the book and all the tools that folks have access to and the choices that they're making are so that you have money in the bank. And if you're at a job where folks are mistreating you, you can leave, right? Or if an opportunity comes up or you get really excited about this business idea, you could start it, right? Or you have this dream to go to this country or to do this thing, whatever the dream is, I want you to be able to say yes and to live your best life, to follow your dreams, to offer whatever gifts you have to offer the world. And so that's why, that's the why behind these financial choices, is so that folks can enjoy freedom. And I think finances are a way to enable that. I think money is a tool to create freedom. And that's what I want for folks who read the book.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I guess, are you able to give us a little bit of teaser of the next book coming up? Like, is that in the pipe works?
The Student's Guide, it's coming.
Okay.
March 3rd, 2026 is the publication date for the Student's Guide to Financial Freedom. So yeah, I would definitely be following me on social at author Paris Woods, or sign up for my newsletter at pariswoods.com so you can be the first to know when it opens up for pre-sale, which will be coming soon. But yeah, the Student's Guide, I'm so excited about it. It is similar to the Black Girl's Guide to Financial Freedom, but some very specific examples and advice for what to do while in high school, what to do while in college, so that you can get a head start on building wealth in your life.
Oh, beautiful. And I love how you sort of, as you're saying, more targeted for people in high school or in college, that they can get ahead before everyone else is even thinking about it, right? And live their life of freedom. So Paris, I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast. You plugged yourself throughout, but if there's any other plugs that you want to plug, like, just plug ahead.
Oh yeah, no, those are the big ones. Author Paris Woods on social media and pariswoods.com, my website.
Bro. So much appreciated, Dr. Paris Woods. And thank you for coming onto the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
thank you for listening to this episode of the Black and Raw podcast. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Black and Raw podcast. I always enjoy talking to guests and finding out more about them and what they're doing. And Dr. Paris Woods was absolutely fantastic. So I really appreciate that. Go follow her on all platforms. It is her tag for different platforms, but also at the same time they'll be in the comments too. And you know, if you can't find her, then go onto my website and you'll find them there. There's so many ways for you to find Dr. Paris. Like, there's no escape, okay? But I really thank you guys for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or whatever platforms you use, then leave a comment. Also follow on those platforms too, guys. And I really appreciate you guys for listening to this episode. So that's me, guys. That's all I gotta say to you. Peace.